1930, just months after the stock market crashed, Babe Ruth signed a 2-year contract that paid him $80,000 a season, more money than any player had ever been paid in the history of the game.
A very, very successful season.
When a reporter asked him whether it was unseemly, in the midst of the Depression, to be getting a bigger salary than President Herbert Hoover, he answered, "Why not? I had a better year than he did." Despite the Depression, baseball was still big in New York, where Babe Ruth still dominated the game and filled the headlines. He was the idol of every schoolboy, the delight of every sports writer, drinking and eating too much, cheerfully lighting up the half-smoked cigars he found on the men's room floor, doing his best to ignore the younger sluggers who were now overtaking him, including his seemingly invincible teammate, Lou Gehrig. Gehrig had become the best hitter in the American League, driving in runs at a faster clip than Ruth. But he still had to settle for second billing. The two men were growing increasingly distant, and now Gehrig became obsessed with setting a record no one could ever match. Since May of 1925, he had not missed a single game, despite aches, sprains, and fevers. He determined never to take himself out of the lineup. "Why don't you take a rest?" someone asked him. "There's no point to it," Gehrig answered. "I like to play baseball. And if I were to sit on the bench, the worry and fretting would take too much out of me."
My family and other families in the South, religious families, would not allow us to play on Sunday. When I got older, I started slipping away to play. But we had to go to church on Sunday, not play baseball. But they would have Saturday games at these churches out in the fields.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dwayne Kuiper with Mike Krukow. Just moments away from MVP baseball with EA Sports.
As I look back, remember now, my mother would make a ball out of a sock and put a rock inside of it.
Starting for the home team, Joel Pinheiro.
And as I got a little bit older,
should be a great game today between the Boston Red Sox and the Seattle Mariners.
And we just make up a little team.
Here's the game's first batter, Johnny Damon.
All teams, all the towns and cities had baseball teams, factory teams, and steel mill, furniture store. Because that was basically the only thing that you could do was play baseball in the summertime.
He hits the target for his stride. Here's the pitch. The pitch is hit to right field. He got it. Great catch in the gap.
Black players had been shut out of the major league since the 1880s.
Manny Ramirez.
But for half a century, they had struggled to build leagues of their own.
Misses, and the count is 1-0.
Now, while most of organized white baseball faltered in the midst of the Depression, black baseball flourished as never before. Teams were points of pride in black communities all over the country, boosting local economies, making life a little easier in southern towns and in northern ghettos, stitching black America together. In the 1930s, Rube Foster's old dream of a separate but athletically equal league finally came true.
The opening ceremonies consisted of a parade of automobiles, some 300 in number, led by a squad of motorcycle police, and a truck filled with tutors of jazz hounds.
He was hoping the batter would go.
It was a great day for the opening. Warm weather and the folks coming out like a lot of bees hidden away all winter and getting active when the sun shines. Chicago defender.
The catch is made.
It was the era of dress up.
It was that era.
This batter pounds
See,
the ball
the men
off
have
right-handed
on
pitches.
ties, hats. The ladies had on their fine
And
dresses.
it's 0-1.
In our baseball, a Sunday baseball, in our faith, you know, Methodist, Baptist, or whatnot, 11 o'clock service on Sunday. But when the Monarchs were in town or when the East-West game was on,
That'll do it as we go
they
to the
started
bottom of
church
the
at
inning.
10 o'clock. So
now
they
the
could get
starting
out an
lineup for the
hour
home team.
earlier so they could come to the ball game. So they got
Today's
on their
starter for the
finery
visiting
coming from
team,
church,
Wade Miller.
came straight to the ball game, looking pretty. Yes, we loved it.
Much of the drama of black baseball was centered in Pittsburgh, where a former basketball player named Cumberland Posey Jr. bought a team called the Homestead Grays and staffed it with some of the greatest players in the league. In 1931, Posey was suddenly confronted by a dangerous crosstown rival, Gus Greenleaf, king of the city's numbers racket and creator of a brand new team, the Pittsburgh Crawfords. Before long, much of black baseball would be in the hands of racketeers, among the few members of the black community with enough money in the midst of the Great Depression to pay the bill. When his black stars weren't allowed to use the showers in Pittsburgh's Forbes Field, Gus Greenleaf built his Crawfords a $60,000 stadium. Then he stole Cumberland Posey's biggest stars, including Oscar Charleston and Judy Johnson. The result was a lineup which for a time rivaled the best white teams in history. The Crawfords played everywhere, a player remembered, in every ballpark, and we won. Won like we invented the game.
Miller misses.
We had some outstanding owners. We had some crooks.
He threw one out of the strike zone, hoping the batter would bite.
And we had some people that was
Hit towards the shortstop.
more or less interested in us in a different way.
He's safe
We had
at
two
first.
undertakers.
The owner of the Newark Eagles was Abe Manley, but it was his wife, Effa, who ran the team.
Next up,
Tough-minded and shrewd, she was a power in Negro baseball and the black community for more than 15 years.
Miller froze him with
Sometimes
a fastball
donating
strike.
the home game proceeds to the most important civil rights issue of the day, the campaign against lynching.
The catch is made
Black
by the second
entertainers
baseman.
also sponsored their own teams.
Stepping
Louis
in.
Armstrong had his New Orleans secret nine. Cab Calloway played on his own team of all-stars. Bill Bojangles Robinson was part owner of the New York Black Yankees, and sometimes tap danced on the dugout roof.
We would play ball in the afternoon and down to the auditorium that night. We would all go down to here, Hampton, Duke Ellington. That's what, huh? The best of all. We knew him. You know what I mean? Buddy, buddy. We ate together. We slept together. This was actually an exciting era. Yeah, in the United States.
This pitcher has 3 different pitches that he'll throw in any count.
Nice one, but he gets it fouled. In tight.
Sometimes you try to make a hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Great is baseball, the national tonic, the reviver of hope,
Fastball
the restorer
outside.
of confidence, the sporting news.
3-2.
The idea of a baseball game on a sunny spring or summer day is the spontaneity of God.
Terrific at bat right
Let's go to
here.
the park, you
Guys,
say,
this
at
guy's
2
one
o'clock.
tough at bat.
And the game was played at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's go to the bleachers. And
There's
you
a
go
line
and you get a
drive.
ticket and you sit down. You haven't thought about it in a minute.
He's on his way
you
to
were free,
second.
say, for one reason or another. And it was a
Safe.
spontaneity.
That's a double.
And sitting there in
Guy
the
swung for his
sunshine
pitch and he
watching
hammered it.
experts,
I mean, that's a
good,
great piece of
skilled
hitting that led to that
craftsmen
double.
fly that trade.
The next
For
batter
3
is
seasons, even the
Simpson.
mighty hitting of Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth could not deny the American League championship to Connie Mack's still mightier Philadelphia Athletics. Finances had forced him to disband his first championship team in 1914, and it had taken him 15 years to climb back to the top.
Strike one.
His newly constituted A's won back-to-back World Series in 1929 and 30.
The pitch is
Pennant in 1931. Mack's finest pitcher was Robert Moses, lefty Gray. He was so fast, a sports writer said, he could throw a lamb chop past a wolf. He was a savage competitor who sometimes threw at his own teammates in batting practice and was notorious for ripping his clothes and smashing lockers when he lost, something he didn't do very often. During the Athletics' 3 championship years, he won 79 and lost just 15. The A's hitters rivaled even the Yankees' murderer's row.
Ground ball to the right side.
Mickey Cochran was the best-hitting, fastest-running catcher the game had yet seen. But he was called Black Mike because of the foul mood that overcame him when the Athletics suffered even a momentary setback.
The score is 2-0.
Left fielder Al Simmons was a Polish immigrant son whose real name was Aloysius Szymanski. He drove in more than 100 runs 11 years in a row. He just couldn't help it, Simmons said. He hated pitching. But the most frightening hitter was first baseman Jimmy Fox, Double X. He hit 58 home runs one season, just 2 short of the record Babe Ruth had been sure would never be broken. He cut off his sleeves to display his massive biceps. Even his hair has muscles, a pitcher complained. Opposing players called him the Beast. Jimmy Fox wasn't scouted, a pitcher said. He was trapped. But even the A's great lineup could not fill the seats at Shibe Park. And Connie Mack once again sold off his stars, this time to repay bank loans incurred after the great crash.
The batter got the benefit of the doubt.
They asked the third base umpire if he
Things change so fast in the United States. All of us had the experience, even by the time we're 40, of going back to the place where we grew up and finding everything changed. And something about baseball
this lefty has okay
seems to tie us into that change, or to link us, to carry us across the decades and the times.
For a ball, 1-0.
As the new players come up and the old, formerly new players become old, there's a kind of continuity to it that we don't find in our neighborhood,
a pretty impressive total,
where the old factory is torn down and a new supermarket goes up, and the supermarket is torn down, and condominiums go up, and baseball, for all its changes, continues.
Popped up in
3
foul
strikes
territory,
are still now.
but he has room for a play. Heading into the bottom of the second, the score
On
is
June
3rd,
1932, Lou Gehrig did something even Babe Ruth had never done. He hit 4 home runs in a single game. But that extraordinary feat got him few headlines the next day. Something even more important to baseball had happened. John McGraw was leaving the game.
Just missed.
He tried to get the batter to chase a fastball right out of the zone.
He delivers.
After 30 years of continuous services, John Joseph McGraw has resigned as manager of the Giants. At the age of 59, Mr. McGraw steps down because of failing health, with his Giants in last place.
Comes to the plate.
Mr. McGraw was a product of the old school of baseball, when fistfights were common, when red liquor was sold at all the parks, when only ladies of questionable social standing attended the games. To the end, he was faithful to his truculent creed. The last official act he performed as manager of the Giants was to file a protest with the league against Bill Clem, the umpire. Joe Williams, New York World Telegram.
He died 2 years later, mourned by many as the greatest of all baseball men.
Should have no problem.
The winner of 10 pennants.
After 2 innings, the score is 2-0.
Not long after his death, his wife found among his effects a list of all the black players he had secretly wished he could hire over the decades.
first pitch a bit low.
Sometimes you try to make a hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
And a strike.
How to stay young.
That is pinpoint control right there. The catcher set a target on the corner, and the pitcher just hammered it for a strike.
Avoid fried meats which angry up the blood. 2. If your stomach disputes you, lie down
This righty
and
doesn't
pacify
exactly rip
your
up
cool
right-handed pitching.
thoughts. 3.
Strike
Keep the
with
juices
the slider.
flowing by jangling
Yes, hitter, you
around
hate facing
gently
this guy. 5
as you
different
move.
pitches. This dude creates a lot of guesses.
4. Go very
He tried to
light
get the
on
bat to go
devices
fishing,
such
and he
as
did.
carrying on in society. The social rambling impressive.
Pinheiro delivers out of the zone,
5.
and it's 1-2.
Avoid running
Sometimes you
at
try to make
all
the hitter chase your
times.
pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
6. Don't look back. Something might
He
be
squeezes it for the out.
Hit a nice pitch there to get the fly ball. Nice work.
Stepping in,
The most
Johnny
celebrated
Damon.
of all black baseball
This batter's been
stars
known to
was
go
a
on
tall,
streaks
gangly
versus
pitcher of
right-handed
indeterminate age,
He brings a good
Leroy
four-seam
Satchel
fastball, a
Paige.
slide piece, and a curveball.
Born and raised in Mobile, Alabama, he honed his skills in reform school and began his career playing for the Mobile Tigers at $1 a game if attendance was up, and a keg of lemonade if it
Pinheiro with a
wasn't.
1-2-3
A
inning.
natural showman, he drew
After
black
2.5,
baseball's
the
biggest
Mariners
crowds
lead
for
by
22
2
years.
runs.
He may have been the greatest
batter is
pitcher of
Ichiro.
all time.
The most outstanding pitcher
A bit high.
I'd ever
1-0.
seen.
He's the kind of guy managers just
And
love. He's pitching
as an
the hitters.
individual, Satchel was a comedian.
Up the middle.
Satchel was a
He
preacher.
misses the catch.
Satchel was just about some of everything.
He reaches for
He
the
was
leadoff
like,
single.
we had a good baseball team. When Satchel pitched, we had a great baseball team. It was just Satchel brought the best out in everybody. And the main thing part about it, he brought the best out in the opposition too.
When this righty comes to the plate, he puts out a clean
On the
pitch.
mound, one rueful batter remembered, Satchel Paige threw fire.
Okay, this dude knows
He
how to
had a
steal
whole
bag, and now is a
arsenal of
great time.
distinctive pitches. His B-ball, jump ball, trouble ball, long tom, his hesitation pitch.
Number one, that's a fastball.
And on 3
He
pitches,
called that
he's
his
gone.
midnight rider.
That batter never had a
The
chance.
change-up, he called that 4-8 creeper. I was afraid, 4-8 creeper.
Brown steps into the box.
Number one, midnight rider.
He kicked his leg impossibly high before
He
pitching.
painted the black for that
Then
one.
he'd throw around
Punch
that
out more
foot.
than a few batters each time
Half
he
the
starts.
guys one victim remembered were hitting at that foot coming up.
Fly ball hit the shallow left.
They rarely hit the
He
ball
makes a
at all.
spectacular
When
catch.
playing hometown teams, Page liked to guarantee to strike out the first 9 men up. Then he would call in the outfield and make good on his promise.
2 outs and 1 on.
I remember one time
Fastball in
when we was
tight
barnstorming,
for a ball.
the guy
Partner,
said,
this
"Sack,"
runner
he
is
said, man, I
excellent.
said,
Reading
I
pitches
didn't know
and
you
they're
still
the
had the
left.
fastball. He said,
Shocked
that
if he
wasn't a
went here.
fastball. He said, that was my
will
hurry
fall
up
into a
pitch.
base hit.
and it got by.
He's out with a 2-out single.
He was a good pitcher. I was playing in Toledo Park, first team in 1940. And I heard about Satchel. So I said, well, I'm going to stay up there a whole week after the season over and see Satchel. Because I'd never seen him before. So I was up in the grandstand, bashful like I was, you know. I'm way up by myself, and the game started, and Satchel threw the ball. I didn't see anything. The man threw the ball back. He threw it again, I didn't see nothing. I said, they playing shadow ball?
Hit towards the
I said,
shortstop.
don't play shadow ball. I said, there's no shadow ball. This is a real game. So I said, I know. The next
And
day,
the
I'm
run
going out
comes
and see.
home.
So next thing I went down all the way behind the stop. I just saw the glimpse. He was throwing the ball. But in the grandstand, I couldn't see it. That was the first time I seen Satchel. When I went home, I said, well, I've seen Satchel.
People only got to see the major leaguers in the big cities. I believe people got a chance to see me everywhere. I played all over. Farm fields, penitentiaries, any place in this whole
There's a
country
foul
where
off
there
the
was a
catcher.
baseball diamond. They know me and see me.
On the ground.
Because black baseball was played in so many places, and because few black teams had the money to pay someone to keep score, No one knows precisely how many games he won. Page himself estimated that he pitched in 2,500 games and won 2,000 of them, 4 times the major league record.
See, Satchel did to black baseball just what Ruth did to white baseball.
George steps into the batter's box.
Ruth kept the franchises going. This Ruth, after the Black Sox scandal, here comes a Ruth, and he brings it back. And this is the same thing that happened to us. This Satchel came. This is a guy that the people wanted to see. And
that's the third out with 1 runner stranded in scoring position.
Anytime a team got into trouble, one player remembered, it sent for Satchel to pitch. The average black player was paid $200 to $300 a month. Page made several times that amount. The majors couldn't pay me enough to play, he once said.
Satchel Paige had a good arm. A strong arm with no muscle.
Lifts one to right.
It was like a slingshot. I grabbed his arm one day. I said, "Hey, Satchel, I see you got muscles." He said, "No, but I just let the ball up there." And he can stand still and throw the ball just like that. See, my arm had muscle. See, my arm would get sore quicker than Satchel will. I've had twisted muscles.
This is an ideal double play.
He had a whip on his arm.
The pitcher can get
And he had control. And he believed what he could do. He always believed.
He knew how to pitch. That's one thing. And then, you know, when he got ready to warm up, he wouldn't look for no plate or glove. He'd try to find him a piece of chewing gum or match them. He said, "This is what I'm aiming at." See, and he would throw. And then another thing about Satchel, when he was on the road, he liked to drive fast. So I was driving for him, you know. And so we was going from Little Rock to New Orleans. He said, he called me home. He said, "Hey, homie." He said, "Pull over." I said, "What for, Satch?" He said, "There's a man behind us in a wheelbar." He said, "We want to let him by." So, well, I was doing about 80, you know. And so, hey, at that rate, you know, hey, I wasn't going fast enough for him.
Taken for a ball.
I would ride with him.
He's hitting 284.
We were going to the Wichita, Kansas to play in the tournament. And he went through a town doing 85 miles an hour and the police stopped us.
2 balls and 1 strike.
And he said, "Who the hell you think you are?" He said, "I'm Satchel Paige." He said, "Where you come from?" He acted like he didn't know Satchel. He said, "By you being Satchel Paige, that'll be $20. Back in that day, $20 fine was a lot of money for Satchel Paige. But I got out the car waiting for the boss to come and got in his car. I wouldn't ride with Satchel no more.
Page was a shrewd self-promoter. He pretended to be a sort of sleepy country boy, giving distinctive nicknames to all his friends. And reporters eagerly gathered the aphorisms he loved to coin.
Satchel said, "If you want to live a long time, don't fool with nothing old but money. Nothing big but a bankroll, nothing black but a Cadillac. Nothing over 22 years, nothing that weighs over 130. If you do, you're in trouble. Because when you're getting old, your cells are getting low, and you need a Delco battery to boost you." How'd that sound?
A part of Satchel that no one
ever hears about
is this part of Satchel.
He's on
we in
first with a
Atlanta. We're playing in Atlanta. The next night we're going to play in Charleston, South Carolina. So we left that night from Atlanta going to Charleston. And when we get to Charleston that morning, the rooms weren't ready. So he said, "Nancy, come go with me. We riding on that bus." I said, "Okay." I had an idea where he was going. We went over to Drum Island. Drum Island is where they auction off the slaves during that period.
1-1
so
the count.
He said, "Come go with me." So we went to Drum Island.
That's exactly
and
what you saw
they
right
had
there.
a plaque there, you know, saying what happened there. And we stood there, he and I, maybe 10 minutes. Not
Pinheiro
saying a
with the
word,
1-2
just
delivery.
thinking.
It's hit out to
And,
center.
After about 10 minutes, he said,
He puts
"You
it
know what,
away.
Nancy?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "Seems like I've been here before." I said, "Me too."
The next batter is Mike Lowe.
You know, I know my great-grandfather could have been there. See, my great-grandmother could have been there. Auctioned off on that block. This was Saturn. This was Saturn. It was a little deeper than a lot of people thought.
Pitch taken for a ball. A liner.
One of the things about baseball is the imagination of people. When something remarkable happens, I was there in their imaginations. When Babe Ruth allegedly pointed to right field bleachers before hitting his home run against the
trail
Cubs
the Mariners by
in the
one.
series. I've had at least maybe 100 people tell me I was there. If everybody who said they were there really at Cubs Park would see the 500,000 people.
After 4 years, the Yankees were back in the World Series in 1932, playing the Chicago Cubs. The Yankees easily won the first 2 games in New York and then headed west. There was bad blood between the two teams. Cub fans jeered and spat on Babe Ruth and his wife on the way in and out of their hotel. The third game at Wrigley Field witnessed the most hotly debated moment in baseball history. And Babe Ruth was at the center of it.
Runners on first and second with the walk.
In the first inning, Ruth hit a 3-run homer off Chicago pitcher Charlie Root and rounded the bases amidst a non-stop torrent of taunts and abuse. It was only the beginning.
He swiped 13 bases.
He came up again in the 5th inning, and this was after he tried for a shoestring catch and missed it, and the Cubs tied the score. Ruth came to bat the next inning, and the crowd was all over him, just hooting and jeering as he messed up the play in the outfield. And he was yelling back at the Chicago bench and cheering, and he said later, he said, I never had so much fun in my life. It was the first time I got the crowd and the players on at the same time. And he held up a finger when he missed it. There were 2 called strikes and 2 called balls. He held up a finger saying, that's 1. And he held it up again, that's 2. Hartman, the Cub catcher, heard him say, only takes 1 to hit it. The time-honored baseball phrase.
Then Ruth waved his arm. Whether he was merely gesturing toward the Cub dugout or pointing to the center field stands, no one will ever know for sure.
And then he hit the home run. And it wasn't just that he hit a home run. He hit the longest home run ever seen in Chicago at that time to dead center field. And you didn't get center field home runs much in those days. That was a fairly rare thing. And it was a tremendous home run. And it just stunned the crowd.
Gill takes low for a ball. He swung 18 bases.
Went down to first base, and he told a reporter later, he said he was saying to himself, you lucky bum, you lucky bum. And he said something to the Cub first baseman, something to the second baseman, waved at the Cub dugout, came across home plate. Franklin Roosevelt was running for president for the first time, and he was sitting in a box behind home plate. And they said when Ruth crossed home plate with a home run, Roosevelt just put his head back and laughed.
For the Mariners in the 4th inning. With 5 innings left to play, the Mariners lead 5-4. Stepping in,
the pitcher Charlie Root swore Ruth had never pointed to the fence. If he had, I'd have put one in his ear and knocked him on his ass. Lou Gehrig was no less certain that he had. What do you think of the nerve of that big monkey, he asked, calling his shot and getting away with it.
He was pointing to the bench. Actually, if you know Wrigley Field, he's pointing to the dugout on the third base side, and center field way over there someplace. So he wasn't pointing toward center field at all.
Sure, he called a shot. No question about it. The difficulty is, did he point? Did he stand extravagantly and point to center field the way William Bendix did in that terrible movie? No,
they
he
appealed
didn't.
to the first base ump.
Ironically, Gehrig was the real star of the Yankees' 4-game sweep, but few would remember his performance in the face of all the publicity Ruth got. Ruth himself was evasive when asked if he really had called his shot. It's in the papers, isn't it, he said. Why don't you read the papers?
At bat with 1 home run, David Ortiz.
1 month later, Franklin Roosevelt was elected president, pledged to bring his country out of the Depression. I have no expectation of making a hit every time I come to bat, Roosevelt said. What I seek is the highest possible batting average, not only for myself, but for my team. The Depression was the worst crisis in America since the Civil War. In Harlan County, Kentucky, where the coal industry had died, whole communities tried to survive on dandelions and blackberries and pokeweed. Farm prices collapsed and farm families were driven off the land. In just one day, 1/4 of the entire state of Mississippi went under the auctioneer's hammer. Banks failed. And in several bankrupt cities, the animals in the zoo were shot and the meat distributed to the poor. Hundreds of boys and men thumbed their way to Florida to try out for the big leagues, hoping not for stardom, but simply for a job. Half starved and in rags, without money, gloves, or shoes, most were turned away. Some who did get a tryout collapsed on the field from exhaustion and hunger.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Dirksen sends it to right field. The side is retired with one runner stranded.
There is a catcher that any big league club would like to buy for $200,000.
Going into the bottom of the fifth, the score is 5-4.
He can do everything. He hits the ball a mile, and he catches so easy, he might as well be in a rifle chair. Throws like a rifle. Too bad this Gibson was a color kid. Walter Johnson.
Josh Gibson was black baseball's greatest home run hitter, and after Satchel Paige, its biggest crowd pleaser. A sharecropper's son from Buena Vista, Georgia, he was brought north to Pittsburgh when his father moved there to work in the steel mill. His first love was swimming, and he planned to be an electrician until he discovered there was better money to be made in baseball. He broke in with the Homestead Grays in 1930 and quickly proved himself so good that Gus Greenlee stole him for the
Mariners have someone tossing.
He hit more than 70 home runs in 1931 alone, some of them soaring better than 575 feet, and his lifetime record may have approached 950. Legend had it that Gibson hit a ball so hard at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh that it never came down. The next day, Gibson was playing in Philadelphia, 300 miles away, when a ball dropped from the heavens into an outfielder's glove. The umpire pointed at Gibson and shouted, "You're out," yesterday in Pittsburgh. Once, when another player handed him a broken bat, thinking it was his, Gibson replied, "I don't break bats, I wear them out." Gibson was often called the Black Babe Ruth, but there were some who thought Ruth should have been called the White Josh Gibson.
He issues the free pass with
Josh Gibson was a guy who could hit the ball a country mile anytime he got up there. You fool him with a curved ball and hit the ball against the right field fence or over the fence. As we say, you get 2 strikes on George. You in the hole, not George is in the hole. One of the greatest hitters I've ever seen.
Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige were relentless competitors. As teammates on the Crawfords, they were a virtually unbeatable combination. But each believed he was the better ball player. "You're the greatest hitter and I'm the greatest pitcher," Paige told Gibson when he left the Crawfords. "Someday we're going to meet up and we're going to see who's best."
Ground ball hit down the left side.
It looks so easy. You get a little Texas leaper out there, you're on first base. And you sort of wonder why somebody don't hit one every time he gets up. It looks so easy when it's done right. And it looks so god-awful when it's done wrong.
Hit to right field. He's around third. A run scored.
The 30s were kind of clowning in baseball, particularly in the National League. You had 2 forms of the clown. At one end, you had the St. Louis Cardinals. At the other, more inept level, you had the Brooklyn Dodgers, the Daphnis boys, led by Wilbur Robinson.
The boys, now you're all practically here. I want to get you together and give a few instructions this morning. For all you boys to put your shoulder to the wheel.
Red Sox turn it
do
over
the best
to the
you can, and I'm sure we'll
They're
get
going
out
to the bullpen.
Second division, which we should do. Been in there long enough. Now,
About the rules of the club for the year, I haven't got any rules. Baseball.
I think in the past that certainly Brooklyn's character was defined by the Brooklyn Dodgers. Even just the name Dodgers coming from trolley cars that everybody had to dodge. The idea that Brooklyn felt a stepchild to New York City, and that somehow the Dodgers, the bums, were stepchilds too, that were going to show the hotty-toddy New Yorkers that we were really better than them, defined who Brooklyn was. And even in Long Island, where I grew up, I felt that sense of Brooklyn, and it was all part of the Dodgers. I don't know that that exists today in the same way, that you define who you are through your team and through your city. And I think it's a loss. It means that people are more fragmented. They've got themselves and a few friends, but they don't have that group sense unless there's a win. But that's not the same. That's not what this was all about when I was growing up. We hardly ever won, and it didn't matter.
Brooklyn had last won a pennant in 1920, but the Dodgers had never won a World Series. And with players like P. Ridge Day and Hot Potato Hamlin, they were best known for what one of their own managers called bonehead plays. The most celebrated Dodger star was Babe Herman, who hit .393 in 1930, an all-time Dodger record. But he was famously inept in the field, carried lit cigars in his pockets, and once boasted that if a fly ball ever hit him on the head, he'd quit. When a reporter asked if that also held for being hit on the shoulders, he said, "No, only the head. Shoulders don't count."
It was an even bet that Babe would either catch it or get killed by it. His general practice was to run up when the ball was hit and then turn and run back and then circle about uncertainly. All this time the ball was descending. The spectators were petrified with fear, and Mr. Herman was chewing gum, unconcerned. At the proper moment, he stuck out his glove. If he found the ball there, he was greatly surprised and very happy. Collier's Magazine.
Gathers it in with his glove. There's an out. The Mariners are warming some relievers in the bullpen.
Here's the new ball we're going to use this year. It looks like it's going to be kind of tough for you hitters.
The Dodgers' best pitcher was Dazzy Vance, a hefty right-hander with an 83-inch reach, who had been the dominant strikeout pitcher of the 1920s. He literally had a trick up his sleeve.
You couldn't hit him on a Monday. He cut the sleeve of his undershirt to the elbow, and on that part of it he used lye to make it white, and the rest he didn't care how dirty it was. Then he'd pitch overhand out of the apartment houses in the background at Ebbets Field. Between the bleached sleeve of his undershirt waving and the Monday wash hanging out to dry, the diapers and undies and sheets flapping on the clothesline, you lost the ball entirely. He threw balls by me I never even saw.
They're going to have to do something out there. Some of these pitches ain't even close.
Oh! Pitch taken for a ball.
Looks like July. Feel like September.
There's his fourth walk of the game.
Brooklyn rarely rose above sixth place. Even their die-hard fans called the Dodgers Dem Bums.
The Dem Bums became the Dodgers. That was the big name for them. Our bums, our beloved bums. But the term, when it was first used, was pejorative. In the 20s and 30s, people in Brooklyn needed the Dodgers to win, and they'd go out to the ball game, the Dodgers would lose, and they'd lose stupidly and carelessly and dumbly, and people would come out of Ebbets Field saying, "Them bums, those lousy bums, they lost again." How'd those bums do today? And it wasn't until they started to win that the nickname became an admirable and became capitalized.
After 5 1/2, Seattle leads by 4.
Well, I'm going to win all I can, buddy.
How much is that, Dad?
Well, how many would you like to have to win? About 45. Well, I'll do the best I can. If I win 45, that isn't going to leave many for the other players to win, is it?
That's all right.
Well, I'll do the best I can anyway for you and the rest of the boys.
Okay.
How are you?
Back in those days, we rode all night in the buses. Sometimes we played 4 games a day in one day. Nobody ever heard of that before.
Sometimes you try to make a
We'd play 9:45 in the morning. 1 o'clock a doubleheader, then go 50 or 60 miles that night and play a game. And driving all night in those buses. That's the thing. I traveled in those buses 31 years. Was torn over full time, and you know what? Somebody upset like me because I never got a scratch.
He's down on strikes.
He just didn't put the ball in play. Skipper cannot be happy with that.
Next up, Ichiro. There are too many left-handed hitters who enjoyed the type of success this guy has against right-handed pitching. That fastball was blocked at 97, but it missed for a ball. Base is empty with 1 out. The pitch is hit to center field. Damon should have no problem. He's got it.
Now, we are traveling all over the country. We could be in, say, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and we're playing Hattiesburg. When we drive the bus up, people would say, where did you come from? And say, well, we are coming in from Memphis. Say, I've got a sister. My grandmother lived in Memphis. You know, people, and they wanted to know how is what's happening on Beale Street. And we were actually a part of, we were carrying the news of what's happening. Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
That's 3 strikeouts.
Black players excelled under conditions big leaguers never had to face. Their season was longer, their pay far less. And to keep their teams afloat during hard times, they were always on the road.
For more on MVP baseball,
the brand of baseball they played wherever they stopped was faster, more daring than that in the majors.
Pulled foul.
And just as competitive.
We played in a rough league. When I say a rough league, I notice nowadays every time a youngster get a sprain, 15 days on the disabled list. We didn't go on the disabled list unless we were broken and in a wheelchair and on 2 crutches. If we get hurt, we play. We don't have no relief pitcher. You go out there, you go for 9. That's it. You were paid for 9, and that's the way they wanted you to pitch.
The next batter is Manny Ramirez.
Spitballs, shine balls, emery balls. Catcher Roy Campanella remembered, I never knew what the ball would do once it left the pitcher's hand. Some pitchers used a bottle cap hidden in their gloves to scuff up the ball to make it break more sharply. As a result, Negro League batters learned how to hit everything.
Like a good pitch, but called a ball.
For years, the major leagues had scorned the bunt. But black players turned it into an art.
3-1.
The league we were in, you had to produce. Don't they would send you home. There were lots of black guys, cotton patches in the South and other places that could play just as good as we could play. It was just a lucky few that was given a chance.
What a battle this is.
We were worked, Satchel Paige remembered, like the mule that plows the fields all week and drives the carriage to church on Sunday. As the Depression deepened, black teams were forced to innovate. In 1930, the Kansas City Monarchs began carrying lights so that they could play at night. And some clubs expanded their schedules still further to play for white fans in small towns starved for baseball.
They appealed to the third base ump. Ortiz.
They have a sizable following, especially among the fellow black. Also, white people who turn out to watch. They were always sort of scrappy affairs. They all had a
For the
grandstand.
7th inning stretch.
And they were not often offered the use of the stadium, you see. So they had to play in all kind of sandlot situations. I really don't see how they played baseball traveling the way they did in those ramshackle buses without any sleep.
Brown is the next hitter.
Bad road.
And it's 0-1.
In much of the country, roadside restaurants would not allow black ball players into the dining rooms. Gas stations closed their restrooms. White hotels would not let them in.
Pitch strikeout.
Hey, sometimes you make a good pitch.
But when I first started in 1920, with a traveling team, I was making $100 a month, 50 cents a day to eat on.
2 outs.
In southern part of Illinois and southern Indiana was just as bad as Mississippi and Georgia. We didn't get a chance sometime to take a bath for 3 or 4 days because they wouldn't let us. Only time you might catch a man with a good heart at a barbershop let you take a bath for a quarter. But most of the time we go into town down there, we'd have to sleep on the floor in the railroad station, and they'd put a policeman there. They wouldn't trust you to watch you.
We knew what the situation was. So you couldn't change them people, ideas down that part of the country. So why go around and try to fight? I mean, if he say, come to the back for a sandwich, and well, we were home. Well, hey, we would go to the back for a sandwich, because there's no use of saying that we could sit up there in front of his cafe, which we couldn't. Well, see, we knew that, and we wasn't trying to go down there and change rules, because you can't change. You know, when the government can't change, can't break the rules. Now, what could a ball player do? So we knew that.
With no one out. They set that defensive double play there. You get a ground ball right here, they might get 2. Changeup caught the inside corner.
The lie of baseball is that it's a level playing field, that there's equality, that all of the inequalities in American life check their hat at the door.
That's 3
But they don't go into
strikeouts.
the stadium. But once you're there, there's a sort of bleacher democracy that the banker can sit in the bleachers and converse with the working man next to him. This is a falsehood. You have class and race issues that mirror the struggle of American life, playing themselves out on the ball fields. We like to think that baseball is just some kind of bell
That's
job.
exactly
It's
what they were looking
impervious
for.
to
They
change.
needed the D to turn 2.
And it's not simple.
Going into the bottom of the
By
8th, the Mariners
1933,
lead by
as
a
Franklin
margin of
Roosevelt
4.
began to implement his New Deal for the American people,
Stepping in,
the
2
Depression
for 3,
had
Raul
devastated
Ibanez.
organized baseball. Attendance dipped to its lowest levels in
Takes
decades.
a pitch just off
Only the
plate,
Yankees and a
1-0.
handful of other teams were profitable. And club owners everywhere scrambled to save their businesses. Some sold off their stars to survive. Clark Griffith of the Washington Senators even sold his own son-in-law, shortstop Joe Cronin.
He's laid out. He's got it. What
The
a
minor
great
leagues were
diving
hit
catch.
even harder.
He's
More than
out.
half went out of business. Desperate to lure back paying customers, minor league owners tried dozens of innovations and
The
promotions.
Mariners have
Mortgage
activated the
nights,
bullpen.
beauty contests, grocery giveaways, raffles, night baseball, and cow milking
When
contests.
he bats against right-handers, this righty enjoys great success.
In 1933, the majors got into the act, staging a game in Chicago's Comiskey Park between the best players in each league to try to revive interest in baseball. Fans across the country were encouraged to vote for their favorites. It was the very first All-Star game.
Nixon puts it
Fittingly,
away for the
Babe
out.
Ruth was the hero,
1 inning left to play.
hitting
The
a dramatic
score is
2-run
8-4.
home run that gave the American League the edge.
Leading off the inning will be the 7, 8, and 9 hitters.
This is it. They're going to have to create
Soon
some offense
after,
in a hurry.
it was announced that the first black All-Star
ball,
game
no strikes.
would also be
He
held in
swiped 5
Comiskey
bases.
Park.
This was a gala affair, and people would come. Yes, people would come, like we used to say, tutu new. They would come to see the East-West game. Now this is the weekend, and Chicago South Side lit up. And everybody came to that ball game. You would look up, here's Joe Louis and Marva Lewis sitting in a box seat down front. You understand? And all of the great entertainers in Chicago at that time, down there they would come, and
it's 2 balls and
we
1
had something to show. Yeah, had something to show.
Up the middle.
Black fans also picked their favorites, voting in the pages of the country's top black newspapers. The East-West All-Star Game quickly became the biggest event of the Negro League season. That was the glory part of our baseball, one player remembered. The huge crowds sometimes reached 50,000.
They say that we were not organized. We were organized, and we had 2 leagues. We had a 140-game schedule. We played an all-star game every year in Chicago. We had sellouts. We had a World Series at the end of the season. That's not organized. I don't want to organize it.
This one is over. Pinheiro picks up the win. Miller is saddled with the loss. The Seattle Mariners win it by 4.
They don't look like a major league ball club, or as major league ball clubs are supposed to look in this era of the well-dressed athlete. Their uniforms are stained and dirty and patched and ill-fitting. They don't shave before a game, and most of them chew tobacco. They spit out of the sides of their mouths and then wipe the backs of their hands across their shirt fronts. They're not afraid of anybody. Frank Graham, New York Sun.
Baseball had never seen a team quite like the 1934 St. Louis Cardinals of the National League, a perfect symbol for a country down on its luck. They were daring, hot-headed, raucous, unstoppable. The carefully crafted creation of General Manager Branch Rickey and his revolutionary farm system. In a time when people were forced to make do with less, the poorly paid Cardinals were everybody's heroes. They were led by Frankie Frisch, the Fordham Flash, who was celebrated for his furious reactions to bad calls. And he considered any call against the Cardinals bad. He hurled his glove into the air, leaped up and down on his cap until his spikes had shredded it. At least once this proved so persuasive that the umpire actually reversed himself and called for a game to be replayed. Shortstop Leo the Lip DeRocher was brash and cocky and good in the field, but so bad at bat that Babe Ruth named him the All-American Out. Left fielder Joe Medwick, called Ducky because he ran like one, swung at almost everything, but connected often enough to lead the league in runs batted in 3 seasons running, and to win the National League Triple Crown, something no one else has managed since. Third baseman Pepper Martin, the wild horse of the Osage, was a fierce competitor and former hobo who liked to drop sneezing powder into hotel ventilation systems. He was said to be so fast that back home in Oklahoma, he liked to run down rabbits.
I was in the top 10% of my class in law school. I'm a doctor of jurisprudence. I'm an honorary doctor of laws. And I like to believe I'm an intelligent man. Then will you please tell me why, in the name of common sense, I spent 4 mortal hours today conversing with a person named Dizzy Dean?